Is the quietness you feel in a group conversation just who you are? Or is it fear dressed up in your personality as a disguise? That question sounds simple, but for a lot of people living with social anxiety, it's one of the hardest questions they've ever had to sit with. Because if you spend years trying to fix something that's simply part of who you are, you end up fighting yourself. And if you spend years accepting something that's actually treatable as a permanent part of your personality, you end up surrendering to something you never even had to carry. In this video, I'm going to give you a way to finally tell the difference between introversion, shyness, and social anxiety, so you can stop guessing and start understanding what's actually going on inside of you. For those of you who don't know, my name is Blake and I'm the creator of socialanxietyhaven.com. When I was 19, I was diagnosed with social anxiety, and for years before that diagnosis, I had no idea what I was dealing with. I thought that I was just quiet. I thought that I was just shy. It took me a long time to realize that what I was carrying went deeper than any of those things. And that realization, the moment of actually understanding what was actually happening to me, was the thing that finally let me start working through it. That's what I want to give you today. Let's start with introversion, because it's the most misunderstood of the three. Introversion is not a disorder. It's not a limitation. It's not something that needs to be fixed. It's a personality trait, a description of how your nervous system naturally responds to social stimulation. Introverts spend energy in social situations and need time alone to recover from it. That's it. There's no fear, no avoidance rooted in dread, just a nervous system that processes stimulation differently and needs space to reset. An introvert can love people. They can enjoy a party, hold a conversation with confidence, and even connect with the people around them. But they just need quiet time afterward to come back to themselves. The thing most important I want you to take away from this section is this. Introversion is not social anxiety. These two things get conflated constantly, and it causes real damage. Some people pathologize something healthy in themselves. Others use introversion as a label to avoid confronting something that actually deserves attention. And neither of those two things serve you. Shyness sits in the middle of the spectrum, more than a personality preference, but less than a clinical condition. A shy person isn't necessarily drained by social interaction the way an introvert is. They might genuinely want to connect, join the conversation, be in the room. But what holds them back is an internal hesitation, a worry about saying the wrong thing, appearing awkward, being evaluated. That worry is real, but it's also usually situational and manageable. Here's the key distinction. Shyness responds to familiarity. The first day of a new job might feel excruciating for someone who is shy. But 6 months in, that same environment feels completely navigatable. The hesitation softens with exposure and time. That distinction matters more than it might seem, and it leads directly into what I want to talk to you about next. Social anxiety disorder is where the spectrum moves from personality and temperament into clinical territory. At its core, social anxiety is an intense, persistent fear of being judged, embarrassed, or negatively evaluated in social situations. But unlike introversion, which is driven by how the nervous system responds to stimulation, social anxiety is driven by what the brain has learned to expect. Through years of negative social experiences, criticism, rejection, or simply growing up in an environment where being seen felt unsafe, the brain develops a conditioned response that people are threats and social situations are where you get exposed. The difference between this and shyness comes down to three things: intensity, persistence, and impact. A shy person might hesitate before speaking up in a meeting. A person with social anxiety might spend the entire night before the meeting unable to sleep, convinced that they are going to say something wrong. A shy person feels awkward at a party but might warm up after an hour. A person with social anxiety will either leave the party early or endure the whole thing with significant levels of distress, and then avoid the next situation because the cost of going felt way too high. Social anxiety also has a physical dimension that shyness typically doesn't. Having a racing heart before social interactions, sweating, trembling, or blushing, the sudden inability to find words before or during a social interaction. These aren't just mild discomfort. They're a full nervous system response to a perceived threat. And that's why telling someone with social anxiety to just push through it misses the point. Here's where I want to bring all of this together. Because understanding these three things intellectually is one thing, knowing where your own experience actually lands is another. There are three things I want you to sit with honestly. The first one is for introversion. Ask yourself, does this really drain me, or does it frighten me? An introvert at a crowded party feels tired. Someone with social anxiety at the same party feels afraid. Both might leave early, both might have preferred to stay home, but the internal experience driving that is completely different, and so is what needs to be helped. The second is for shyness. Ask yourself, does this ease with familiarity? Shyness tends to soften over time in the same environment with the same people. Social anxiety often doesn't, at least not on its own. If the hesitation you feel around someone you've known for years is the same as the hesitation you felt when you first met them, that's information worth paying attention to. The third is for social anxiety. The question you might want to ask yourself is this fear shaping my life in ways I didn't choose? Not just discomfort, not just a preference for quiet, but a pattern of avoidance, rumination, and shrinking that has accumulated over time into a life that looks completely different from the one you actually want. Sit with those three things honestly, not to judge yourself, but just to get a clear answer. We started this video with one question. Is the quietness you feel just who you are, or is it something else? Here's what I hope you walk away with. Introversion feels like exhaustion after a party, your nervous system asking for space. Shyness is the hesitation you feel in a new environment that softens with time and familiarity. And social anxiety is a persistent, pattern-shaping fear that has been quietly narrowing your world in ways you didn't consciously choose. If this video resonated with you, I made another video called What Social Anxiety Actually Is that goes even deeper on where the fear really comes from at its root. Because once you see that, your whole recovery process begins to look different. That video is linked right below. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you all next time.